You're listening to the Oneofus.net podcast network. Constantinople. It's Istanbul, not Constantinople. Come on! I can't be the only person who had that song stuck in my head for like a week after watching this.
I can just see you watching The Defenders, and when that scene comes up, you just pull like a notepad. Yes. These will do nicely.
No, it's just been stuck in my head since then. I can't stop thinking about it. It's funny when I was Googling stuff about, reading other people's opinions, Googling like Easter eggs, stuff like that. I saw like 6 different write-ups all meant to say exactly the same thing. See, I can't get that fucking song out of my head now.
See, I kept on thinking, since Sigourney Weaver plays Alexandra, I kept on thinking like, she should be like, I'm not like the Keymaster or something. Some like little throwaway line would be really nice.
By the way, you can't see it in the shot, but one of the shots in there, if you were to go right around the corner, you would see the building she lived in Ghostbusters.
Oh, nice.
I just thought that was kind of funny. Anyway, yes, we are reviewing The Defenders. I guess we call it Season 1. I mean, this is the end of Phase 1 for Marvel's Netflix shows.
These things are so hard to keep up with.
Yeah. I am Chris.
I'm Zach.
Kyle.
Elliott.
And Ian.
I just want to say hello, especially to Zach, who's brand new to recording with Oneofus.net. I'm glad you were able to come down here. Do you want to say a little something about yourself?
Oh, I'm Zach. I'm a big geek. I like comic books. I kind of like this show.
You have mixed feelings about
Mixed feelings about this show.
So right now, does everyone describe themselves as having mixed feelings about this show?
Very much so,
Conflicted.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're all on the same page, at least in a general term.
Yeah.
Low valleys, high mountains.
Yeah, okay, fair
Like,
enough.
I don't want to spoil the end of the review, but seems like calm waters here.
Yeah. It's like, I would be really hard. I would be interested to meet the person who loved this. And I'd also be interested in meeting the person who really, really hated this.
Well, I mean,
Because I don't know if it really warrants that.
it doesn't. Go ahead.
I could definitely see someone hating this. Like, my wife was just kind of irritated and shifting around the whole time. Like, she was like, I feel like this is when you saw Batman v Superman, like, because she could feel me shifting around and huffing and puffing, and she was kind of doing that. And also, she just gave up and started texting. So,
we have a friend, Jason Murphy, that loves Iron Fist.
Yeah.
Now, he probably hates this.
I'm with him right there 100%, and let's just face it, there are other problems with this season, but the singular problem remains Danny Rand, who is somehow even more annoying here than he is.
No, he's less annoying.
Ooh, I don't agree.
He's less annoying because Defenders goes out of its way to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man?
But they don't do it nearly enough to justify how whiny he is the problem.
That's
He didn't finish as many sentences, maybe.
Yeah.
That helped a whole lot.
What helps is that he's annoying and then other people call him out on being annoying. But he's still even more annoying, and I will, and by the way, guys, this is a spoiler review, so if you're like, I'm like, curious to know what you guys think before I see it, you're on the wrong podcast. This is for you to join in on the Schadenfreude
it's been
of our
since
all our
18.
pain.
It's 8 episodes.
Yeah. He does things in this that are so incredibly stupid that he looks like a Mensa graduate compared to what he did on his own show.
It's like it's stupid, but it's more self-centered. And I get that they're going for when he never really matured. I get that, but it's just at a certain point you got to start learning lessons. Mm-hmm. You've had a series, like you should have learned from your fuck ups earlier. Be like, maybe I don't know everything.
When your fists are the key to the giant doomsday weapon that's going to destroy the city, you leave the room. You don't start throwing your fists around at somebody about 2 feet away from the giant doomsday bomb.
That was the point. I just threw my hands up in the air. And I was just like, what?
The second you wake up in that room, I love that every other scene, too. He's like, oh, I can't get this fist going. I got to settle my chi. All right. But then he's down there, he's like, whoa, just lit up fist,
to be fair, like I forgave that because the very end the best part of the Defenders was when Luke goes, Danny, light it up. That was fucking cool.
Yeah, I mean, there are high points just based on other people going, oh, for fuck's sakes, Danny.
The CG on his fist looks cool, and his character arc, from billionaire to...
Still a billionaire?
Yeah. To MacGuffin. Yeah, I mean, that's really compelling.
Well, and it's not just like in the way that other characters in the show treat him. It's also just in the way that like his fight scenes are shot versus everyone else's.
Okay, and everyone across the board has commented on the fact that this actor is not a particularly good stunt actor. He's not lazy. Good at it. Marvel, Iron Fist comes pre-packaged with having a mask. Why didn't you, from
you're
first episode, give the guy his fucking mask, which we saw Orson Randall have in a flashback sequence in the Iron Fist show, which, by the way, if they do Iron Fist Season 2 and it ends up being all about Chow Yun-Fat playing Orson Randall, I always forget
And like from the 1920s?
Yeah, exactly. I'd kill to watch that. But that's what I'm saying, is like, it's there. You know it's a problem. Give him the fucking mask. Do what they do with Charlie Cox. Well, Charlie can't actually do that. Well, we'll just put him in the fucking outfit, and then a guy who can do it will do it.
Well, and it doesn't help that, like, the opening scene of the entire series is a fight scene with Iron Fist, and they very could have easily shot it like a fight scene from Daredevil, or Jessica Jones, where it's at night, it's in the sewers, it's in darkness. Just hold the camera still for 20 seconds and let two stunt people fight.
Yeah.
But no, even then, they can't even do that. It's cut, and it immediately... from like moment one throws you off kilter.
Disorienting.
Yeah, disorients you.
By the way, that guy who dies in that fight scene is Marco Zaror, who is a very well-known in certain circles anyway, Brazilian martial artist who is much loved in Austin for Fantastic Fest, where they play all his new movies and he always shows up.
You wouldn't know, though.
No,
because the cuts, like, it could have been anyone. It could have... In fact, when he died, I actually thought it was some other character because the way the editing was just so frantic.
Even when they were kind of showing you his face, I couldn't... And I've seen every Marco Zaror movie. I've met him in person multiple times. I had no idea that was Marco Zaror. It's not until I looked it up.
Drinks with him. Like held his hand while everything happened.
I pulled his hair out of his face.
Hit him on the back of the ear.
Yeah, was the best man at his wedding. But here's the thing. Y'all are right, because... From the I was wondering the first episode, about 30 minutes in, I was like, why is this not grabbing me?
Yeah.
And it was that first scene, because that first scene, it's so dark, and it's shot so poorly that, like, my brain just goes, oh, shit.
You know what I thought when I saw that first scene? I thought the decision to start this show with Iron Fist was probably made before they saw how people reacted to Iron Fist.
You go back and change it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, did you not have enough time to just think of maybe put him in the background a little bit?
But as you said, Zach, he's the MacGuffin of this particular season. He's in it a lot. It's all about him. Everyone's constantly like, oh yeah, it's about him. And we're all like... can't he just go, oh, I forgot I have to be somewhere.
My planet needs me.
That means there was a meeting a long time ago where they said, this Iron Fist, he's a ringer. Let's just put everything around him.
This is going to be our biggest hit here.
This is going to do it.
And then they hired a showrunner who didn't know what the fuck he was doing and didn't know what they had and just said, I don't really understand this character. I don't respect it, so we're just going to fucking phone it in.
I question if he ever even read any Iron Fist comic books.
He couldn't have.
And this is the guy, by the way, who ruined Dexter, who killed the last couple seasons. This is the same guy who made, which is still being argued as maybe the worst final season of any show ever.
And he's bringing us Inhumans here in a couple of weeks.
Which got early critic screenings, and they all said, this is fucking a flaming dumpster fire. I was like, yeah, no shit.
It's the same one that did the Defenders. Yeah. Is the same person
No.
who did Iron Fist.
No.
Okay.
The guys who did the Defenders, which is partially why I'm kind of surprised that they keep him being as stupid as he is, are the guys who brought us the first two seasons of Daredevil.
So basically,
that's why it's kind of more... It feels a little bit more like Daredevil.
Yeah,
generally.
To some degree, although it certainly, at 8 episodes, doesn't have that thing that started with Daredevil Season 2, where it's like that halfway point, and now we're doing a completely different story.
I tell you, the thing is, the first few episodes, the style of shooting flips from series to series.
Yeah.
I really like that.
That was really cool, because, you're basically, when you hit Jessica Jones, it's all blue filter. You hit Luke Cage, it's yellow filter. And, Claire Temple and him fuck. Congratulations, you finally got your coffee. And then Daredevil, it's like, oh, you're sad because all the women you know die.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to be like Karen Page, run. Just run. You don't need to be here. You don't need to know him.
If it makes you feel any better, as we got to the end here, you see at the end, he's in Daredevil's wrapped up on a bed, and nuns are around him, and someone says, "Get Maggie."
Yeah, no.
Well, this is obviously based on, if you read comics, Frank Miller's run, Born Again, where he finally meets his mother, who has become a nun named Maggie. And in that run is where, infamously, the first real mark against Frank Miller in his career, where suddenly out of nowhere, Karen Page is a porno star and a heroin addict who ends up, for money, selling Daredevil's identity to the Kingpin. They've assured us they're not going to do that with Karen Page.
You should just kill her off. I don't know. That actress is...
I mean, the devil has the best lines.
I don't know. I actually kind of like the actress playing Karen Page. They haven't done much with her overall. I mean, maybe it's just because I like the Strawberry Blondes. I don't know.
Really, do you?
I don't know what you're talking about. But that's just such a trashy way to go. It's such a everything that ended up going wrong with Frank Miller way to go. And I'm glad they're saying we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
But the good news of them officially acknowledging, yes, we're doing at least parts of the Born Again storyline, is we're almost certainly going to see Kingpin in the next season of Daredevil.
Yes, sir.
So, yes, very excited about that. But, there's a lot of things to complain about here, obviously.
So let's start. Let's start.
Continue, I think.
Well, let's start with this. How come over the course of, I think, Daredevil season 2, a little bit of Iron Fist, and like 7 out of the 8 episodes of Defenders, she's the Black Sky. She's the Black Sky. I still don't know what the fuck the Black Sky is.
All right, so let's go a little bit back into the history of the Black Sky, which indeed has been mentioned before. Alexandra, Sigourney Weaver's character, keeps calling her that. This first came up in Daredevil Season 1 when Stick referred to it as a deadly weapon, a bringer of shadows, and something that must be stopped at all costs. And that season, remember, it was the young boy who was shipped in as a shipping container to the Kingpin, and then Daredevil stopped him from killing him, but then Stick killed him off screen anyway. It was like, oh yeah, he's dead. You put an arrow in that thing's heart. And we saw Nobu, who appears in this season as well, saying it will be difficult to locate another Black Sky. They are extremely rare, which seems to indicate it's not really a thing possessing
it's like
people.
A conduit?
It's like people who are...
A trait?
A trait.
It's mysticism, racism?
Stick also...
It's like those fucking Black Skies. They'd be evil, but they were so lazy. I'm black, by the way, just saying.
It sounds like the subtitle to a PlayStation game, doesn't it? It's like Call of Duty, Black Sky.
Like a later Metal Gear Solid game.
Yeah. But the Horizon, Black Sky.
But the fact that we don't have a concrete, the fact that you have to read it off and we have to dissect it like a literary criticism is a problem, because if Iron Pin is going to be your linchpin of this phase,
Pin?
I mean Iron Pin.
That's a show I would love to watch.
If he's going to be the linchpin, you need to buy into the mysticism completely.
Yeah. Because
it's your job to convince me to buy into it.
I need to buy into Danny Rand is actually a guy you'd want to hang out with.
And the thing is, if you don't want to do that, if you really don't want to go into it, pull an Ultimates. Where in the Ultimates came out in 2002, the entire run up until Volume 2 of the Ultimates back in 2003, you didn't know if Thor was really a god.
Yeah, I loved that aspect.
And then they just pulled it out. No, he's actually a fucking god. And if you had just been like, oh, it's just chi, whatever, you're inhuman or something, and then all of a sudden the 7 capital cities of heaven show up, and it's like, well, fuck, because that way you get your cake and eat it too.
I still love that Thor and Hela moment. It's like, oh, what are you supposed to be a god of? Boom! I think I made my point. Well, Stick also says he knew Elektra was a Black Sky, but an effort to keep her away from the Hand is why he trained her to be one of the Chaste, which that obviously didn't work out.
That just makes no sense.
And in fact, it was her realizing that she was a potential Black Sky is partially why, arguably, she sacrificed herself in the first place, not realizing the Hand had a whole recycle reuse program.
But just that logic, it's like I think you might be the best drug dealer of all time, so I'm going to put you in the DEA. Like that? No.
Yeah.
Just go put him in a convent in Turkey or some shit.
Well, and I feel like that's systemic to a larger issue that I have with this whole series, which is what is it that the Hand really wants? And I feel like their big plan that they've quote unquote been leading up to this whole time It's really nebulous and it changes every couple of episodes.
It's a bunch of old people who are like, I just don't. I died once. It wasn't great, and I don't want to do it again. And so also I want to go back to Kunlun, which everyone pronounces differently.
How is that not? How is that not entirely an altruistic motive? Like, they just want to live, and then the defenders come in and literally kill them.
Well, that's the thing. You could do something interesting with that. But they don't.
I like that they die like Highlanders. I'll say that.
Well, I mean, they live in exclusion of others. Like, like their living would be destroying New York.
Well, but then again, they didn't set that up properly. Exactly, they kind of hinted at it, and then they always say, "Oh, the hand is super powerful. The hand has infiltrated everything," and they never they say that, but they never show it. Yeah. Not once in the whole. It's like
no, you're completely
they should
right.
have someone in the hand in the police department. And that should have been an episode arc.
Well, was there ever a point in the show that you felt like the defenders were outmatched by the hand? Because I never felt that.
No, because they all cast a bunch of old actors that aren't intimidating, except for Sigourney Weaver,
and the rest of the hand just die if anybody so much as spits on
even Sigourney Weaver. By the time we really get into anything remotely interesting about her character, she then dies immediately afterwards, and you're like, "What the hell was the whole point of that?"
I kind of like that though, because I feel like most shows wouldn't do that, and maybe for a good reason, but like
if they had something good to follow that up with, that's the problem.
And I actually kind of liked the Black Sky, how she wasn't talking and she was just a weapon, and she was like kind of badass. And then as soon as she starts talking, like the actress is like has to do this like sexy thing where it's not. She's not menacing anymore. She's like trying to be seductive.
Suddenly it's Black Sky Diaries,
Yeah.
So 50 Shades of Grey Sky.
Wouldn't have minded.
No, but I mean, like, all right. So, like, if this hadn't been part of the Marvel Netflix series, her dying would have been surprising. But let's face it, they have a tendency of taking out the main villain of any given show way before, like, the show is over in all of these, except for Jessica Jones. You're like, oh, and now here's another villain. I honestly expected at some point, even though it was, like, I think it was, like, episode 6 or something when it happened, I was like, so are they suddenly going to introduce another guy we haven't seen before? Because it feels like that's what they would have done if they had another 3 or 4 episodes.
No, but you make a really good point. Like, watching the Defenders, those villains, the Hand, if they're this amazing and this, we're so afraid of them, I was never as afraid of them viscerally as the Purple Man. David Tennant, what he brought to
he's the best villain.
Oh yeah,
and our D'Onofrio with Kingpin.
Yeah,
like they just seem like substitute teachers. It was like, oh, you want to what's your motivation? Oh, you're just evil. So let me get this straight. You're so evil, you control everything, but you can't fucking dig a hole without building a building. Okay.
And that's cool. And to what Ian said as well, like, okay, so we know their motivation is to live, not die. We know their motivation is to go back to Kunlun. What's the whole thing with blowing up New York about?
Exactly.
What does that have to do with anything?
The thing, they didn't explain it. It was like, something about the bones, if they excavate, it's going to cause a
shift.
Yeah, shift.
And why is there dragon bones in a fucking Kunlun wall under New York City in the first place?
If you go through test screenings and you go, that shit's stupid, nobody gets it. All you have to do, I could have fixed that in a fucking second. Oh, that's just a portal to Kunlun. And we're done. And all of a sudden, you can fix all these flaws very easily. It's like they just didn't want to do rewrites. They just said, nah.
It does feel that way.
What evil thing does Alexandra do throughout the whole series? Like, when at any
She's very
point
rude to her doctor.
does she kill someone?
She made Gao finish feeding the birds. That was pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that was.
Oh yeah.
No, you're right. She doesn't really.
She did. We should have seen her because I was like kind of on her side. It's like, okay, she just wants to live. That's completely altruistic. Why do we have people? I mean, who doesn't want to live forever?
She hangs out on the same rooftop that Spider-Man and Mary Jane kissed.
She dresses super cool. Why would I? I mean, I'm on her side.
Yeah, well, and it's also like I feel like a big problem with the series, especially when it comes to that, is we spent so much time building up, talking about it's this big plan. It's this big plan. Okay, so their big plan was to essentially do what they've done in both seasons of Daredevil, just set up a bunch of bombs in New York.
Yeah.
That's been both seasons of shows we've already seen in the lead up to this. So it doesn't feel like anything
but
new.
with
It doesn't feel like an escalation.
But with
No proper motivation.
Yeah.
The bombs they don't equate to eternal life. No, all you have to do is just go downstairs and it's right there.
It says right there in the hand contract, dick move required.
Just say like, hey, we're going to be nice now, and we're not going to do evil shit, and we'll use the Iron Fist, and then everyone gets eternal life, and then everyone's happy.
Not everyone gonna have eternal life, Zach.
Only the evil people. But they and I get that, but they should have illustrated it. They should have shown it.
Well, I was going to say a big missed opportunity is something that they don't do in this universe yet is you could totally have that reveal to where they find Kung Lun, and it's like a different universe.
What if it's just Asgard?
Well, yeah, or like a kind of a comedic take on this like Marvel TV universe where people are kind of I don't know. I think of like The Office or The Good Place.
Yeah,
just like very dry, but like not what you would expect. And then kind of, take the whole franchise in a new direction.
Yeah, I would love if they
watch.
I would love if they watch a Kunlun and the filters change. Yeah, they're like, it's so much brighter here.
Or they finally get there and they're like, oh yeah, we have to go through the streets in Nepal as you do. And they go by and walk out Tilda Swinton. They're like, hey, how you doing? Oh, good to see you. And they're like right next door. It's just like just the next door is Kunlun.
I feel like Cargo got his wings.
But that's another part where this feels so away from the MCU.
Oh, yeah.
Where every character is like, oh, this is unbelievable. I don't believe this. It's like what universe are you fucking in right now? What do you mean you don't believe there's the hand?
We know you saw the same shit we did.
You just found out about Hydra like 5 years ago.
It's like when you started watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 1, and then Episode 1, you're like, oh, it's part of the same universe. Episode 2, you're like, it's part of the and then by episode 3, you're like, fuck.
It's not I'm not sure it's part of the same universe anymore.
So it's like Iron Fist, you're like, well, maybe it's kind of, and then you get to this and you're like, oh yeah, they're two different things.
There's, and you're right, that whole, that sequence, alright, so to say a good thing, generally I like the back and forth between all these characters.
Yes.
Yeah. And the getting to know each other and all that. With once again,
Chinese restaurant episode
is probably the high point of this whole thing of them all getting together. Even Danny gets a few funny, cool moments in that one. But that whole thing of them going, I'm not sure I can believe this, where writers felt the need to have them go, but wait, all that other stuff that has happened in this universe, we know!
It's like, and then saying, the incident, motherfuckers, aliens invaded the capital of the world.
By the way, multiple times in the context of everything.
At this point, just say fucking aliens.
Yeah.
The characters also make, bad decisions constantly, I'm going to withhold this vital information.
Well, and for Charlie Cox.
It's kind of for no. I don't know.
I'm just saying he's sort of a dick.
Yeah. But
we saw.
I will say that is contextually in the comics absolutely accurate, like you said, for Matt Murdock, who is
he's always been
oh, I guess I probably should have said that, but I like my privacy, damn it.
For 60 years, they've been like, hey man, just come join the Avengers. We'll take care of it. He's like, no.
It is awkward.
I have cut the guilt and I'm a lawyer.
It is awkward here as well with everybody else has a public persona except him, and you're like, motherfucker, you still think people can't figure out that you're Daredevil? Yeah. How would they not know you're Daredevil?
So you disappear from the police station and Daredevil shows up.
You spend all your time hanging out with the other three superheroes, and when they're out, there's another guy who's Daredevil when you're not around. I wonder how that works.
The same 5 o'clock stubble.
Yeah, exactly. You might consider shaving.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
No, but you make a go. I didn't mean to. I'm just saying, he's a dick. That's all. That's his character.
Yeah, Daredevil's always been a dick. He's a dick that you still root for, but you're always like, come on, Matt, Jesus fucking Christ.
But on the other side of that, Luke Cage shouldn't have been as incredulous. It's like you have impervious skin. But you should just go with cheap.
He is lovably affable in this season. He is one of the high points of this season. I think Mike Coulter is one of those guys who's almost at a Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man level.
He's inhabiting the role.
Yeah. You're just like, this is definitely Power Man. You're doing all the stuff right. They give him some of the best lines.
Give him the best line.
That whole, hey man, you started this.
Well, he makes a great point. He's like, let me get this straight. you're a rich white kid beating up a poor black kid on the street. What are you doing that's making the world better? He's like, what? I didn't mean it like that.
I wish they had explored that more. The whole, you're a privileged little white guy with your head in the clouds, billionaire, and you're trying to tell me how
That should have been
work?
Luke Cage, the second half of Luke Cage season 1. They should have got to that mid-season reveal, and then instead of going off with Diamondback, which was bullshit, introduce Iron Fist as a supporting character.
Yes.
Build him that way. Don't try to build this whole thing around him like he's going to be your Batman or something.
Iron Fist should always have been introduced as a supporting character there. That was absolutely the decision they should have made, and it was a massive fuck-up.
Well, because every scene Iron Fist is in with Power Man, he's better. Like the scene where an Iron Fist is, he's restrained, and Luke Cage is just talking to him. Yeah, almost like a big brother, like, come on, man, stop being stupid.
Is amusing only because you really want these characters, mind you, and knowing that they're going to become best friends eventually. You want them to get to that point, but you're still sitting there annoyed as shit that we even are here. We're like, why did we even have to get here?
It is annoying, and it's kind of funny because in that same span of 20 minutes in that episode, Jessica Jones and Daredevil are out doing their thing. And their chemistry is, in my opinion, it's even better. Yeah. And it's weird because they're not at least to my knowledge, not in the comics, they're not BFFs. So, it was great seeing...
You said Daredevil and Luke Cage?
Sorry, Daredevil and Jessica Jones.
Yeah, no, they don't have all four of these characters have a relationship in the comics,
but they're not
super close.
I feel like their shows were more successful for Netflix. I feel that once we get to Luke Cage... We're now dealing with some other stuff, and that's kind of new, you're growing. But then once you have to do the superpowers, and you have to explain kind of the over-the-top stuff, and that's where I feel like Iron Fist fell apart for a lot of people, was the special effects weren't really there.
Yeah.
So I feel like pairing them together in this show, it reminded me what was so great about those first seasons of Jessica Jones and...
It was my favorite part of the show, just them two, and they have these little kind of one-liners that go, back and forth, and... that was, to me, more successful than the Luke Cage, and even though I know comic book canon, they're best friends, but, I want to see Jessica Jones and Daredevil team up.
Yeah, and I also was more into the knowing that Luke Cage and Jessica Jones will eventually become the couple supreme. I was much more invested in their relationship, which actually did kind of catch on fire on screen here once again.
At the very end, when she's like, call me if you want to get coffee.
I was
Jesus.
She don't give a fuck.
All three of them have great chemistry. It's just when they're working with Danny Rand, then that's when, each of those three have chemistry with the other three perfectly one-on-one, but then when they interact with Danny Rand, it's not that great.
You know, you're describing it. Do you remember the Simpsons episode where Bart Simpson is where Principal Skinner's describing Bart Simpson, and he's a black hole of grades. Iron Fist is a black hole of chemistry. That's true. It's you can't escape his event horizon.
Oh, let me describe something else here that I was just talking about this with Jeff from Rage Select earlier. That was I haven't heard anybody else mention, and I was like, this didn't bother anyone else. First off, we see Iron Fist fight Luke Cage, and Luke Cage just sitting there this is nothing. And this guy who can hit as hard as any human being can, unpowered human being, before he hits with his fist, his magical glowy fist, he's just I honestly barely feel this. And then Elektra, who does not have super strength, kicks his ass across the room into unconsciousness.
The Black Sky,
she's the Black Sky.
Not to the degree.
She has plot armor.
Powers.
I had this
never established.
That's the problem.
The fact that we're having to have that conversation proves that the writing on that, especially as far as establishing the rules, is muddy because we're having to go.
I think it's directing as much as writing, because throughout almost every single fight scene except for the hallway fight scene, which they have every season.
You gotta have a hallway fight
except for that one in episode 3. It's very confusing as to who has what power levels and who is hurt and who gets hurt by what and how much damage can someone do. It's all he's your tank. He's your, thief, and that's how you play it. Jessica Jones is your heavy hitter. Have her but they don't do that. She just throws people.
She's still not allowed, even in her own season, which I think is the best of all, in my opinion,
I
of
agree.
all of them.
I agree.
And by the way, according to Netflix, is the number one starting point for watching the Marvel shows. Like, by a sizable margin, most people watch Jessica Jones season 1
I can see
before
that,
watching
because
the
it has
other
David
shows.
Tennant.
It could be too. And
yeah.
they actually said, because our female demographic goes way up.
Yeah.
With that's their entry point. Like, it's
it
really
is.
good. And they end up continuing to watch stuff and then ultimately get disappointed like the rest of us.
You know what else Netflix has? They have testing numbers that say exactly what we've been saying, is that Luke Cage and Iron Fist, they test better when they're on screen together.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see another one of them have a standalone season without the other.
True.
Like, honestly, there's no reason to not... Luke Cage and Iron Fist, unless you're really gonna... At least Iron Fist, unless you're really going to commit to that character and what that character is, there's no reason for him to have his own series without Luke Cage. There's just not. Because unless you're going to do the Capital Cities of Heaven or something with Shang-Chi...
Which they won't because it's too expensive.
There's no reason to do him a second season, except if you're going to split Colleen Wing and Misty Knight off from him
I'd rather see Daughters of the
and have
Dragon
a Daughters of the Dragon.
than another Iron Fist.
I want a
series.
Claire Temple where she becomes the White Tiger.
I just want... And this season I was kind of like Colleen Wing. It's not her fault. I think the actress is fine. I actually liked her. She's my favorite thing about the Iron Fist season. But here she's just kind of treated like an escort mission every time she's on screen.
Did you guys like the scene where she got the sword back? Remember that?
I didn't like any scene with her
At the
in it.
beginning of the 6-episode long wait in this room.
it's a sword.
It made no
It's
sense
special.
for her to be in that room. She was hunting Hydra with him. She should have been a part of the Defenders.
And
It
then
drives me crazy. It's like an Avengers when Rhodey just magically doesn't show up. It's like, he was in Iron Man 2. He should have been in he should have been there. It's like, hey, we got aliens.
We're going to see Misty Knight get the robotic arm. That's admittedly one of those...
No, she's not. She's going to get some prosthetic arm because they don't want to commit to it.
Nah, I don't agree. I don't agree.
They're not going to give...
I think it's such a defining characteristic of that character and the necessity where she has to have something why there's a reason she would still be hanging out with those people. They've even kind of set up, you're not going to be a policewoman anymore. Like, and that's part of the character's story.
Well,
she gets kicked off the police, gets the robot arm, and teams up with Colleen Wing to fight evil.
Well, then they just need to do like a
Danny Rand is going to pay for it because he's in her hospital.
There you go, yeah. It's all set
That's
up for
actually
that.
kind of...
I think I own a hospital, guys.
See, I prefer to go with the Inception route of I bought the hospital. I thought it was prudent.
Gave the hospital my black card.
By the way, there was a surprisingly small amount of Easter eggs this season, but all of the biggest ones take place in that one scene with Misty Knight in the hospital with the nurses board on the wall. For instance, it says the nurse on call is Elle Carter, or Linda Carter, who is the original and still current night nurse in the comic books, which asks the question, are they going to say... Maybe that there is another character that actually is definitively the night nurse.
For the third time now.
Yeah, right?
I really think they're going to turn Claire Temple into something else.
Also, Dr. E. Wortham, who is in the comics Elias Wortham, known by the supervillain named Cardiac, who is a supporting character in Spider-Man. And then the follow-up doctors that are listed on the board are Tony Isabella and Arvell Jones, who created Misty Knight. And then the numbers on top indicate... in a backward sort of way, the original date and release number of the first appearance of Misty Knight in the comic books.
Pretty cool.
Which is, but literally there's very few other Easter eggs.
It just feels like an afterthought. It just feels like they said, we got to throw this stuff in. So
we forgot to throw in some Easter eggs. But I do want to say real quick, I want to go back to I'm sorry, the fucking Elektra being superpowered. If that was the case, then Daredevil wouldn't stand a chance against her fighting.
But the idea
she was
that she
holding
holds
back
back.
because of true
Oh,
love.
come on, but neither would anyone else. There's that
that
one
pasty-
shot where she's able to hit Luke Cage hard enough that he flies across the wall.
Exactly.
And that's the only time that happens.
Well, here's the other thing. How did he get out at the end if Elektra didn't pull him out of the rubble with her superhuman
Well,
sprint?
they've actually even said, Elektra's going to be back.
Yeah, because she's OP.
She's Ocean Pacific?
Overpowered.
Jesus, she's a 1990s shorts brand.
I think
yeah.
they needed to do a better job of, like I said, directing how the power levels and defining them. I'm not necessarily sure it's a writing thing. I think that's something like, okay, well, this person they're going to have to dodge because if they take a hit, that's breaking their arm versus Luke Cage is just going to walk right into it and take a full hit.
Well, I think part of that comes from like, if you want to do it show don't tell, you show them, you demonstrate their different power levels in action, in them fighting, and you do that early on. You don't have the first fight be the end of the third episode.
Yeah.
You have it be like maybe the beginning of episode 2, just so that up front, okay, this is what they're up against. This is their power levels. This is how, as a team, these are the different ranges of powers and weaknesses that they have. So then you don't spend another episode and a half asking those questions.
Yeah.
Did anybody really want to see Bakuto come back? I can't be the only one who said, "Oh fuck."
I said, "Oh fuck," but I was happy to see him because he is lovingly creepy.
Yeah,
like he brought a menace to that show that it needed at that point.
He's only there so that Colleen Wing has something to do.
And thank God, because honestly, it really pissed me off watching that, how they just sort of put her to the side. When she, you shouldn't put Misty Knight, you shouldn't put Colleen Wing, you shouldn't put them to the side.
Don't put Baby in a corner.
She shouldn't have been given her sword back. She should have fucking taken it and left. Because she went in, busted in, and got the plans when she wanted to. It's just honestly, and you've been making the point. It's like directing and writing. I think it's a point where, sometimes you go on a job, no matter what you're doing, and it's usually one person that cares enough that's going to make sure it turns out good. And I don't think between the writing and the directing, I don't think either of them are the producers. I don't think anybody on that level cared enough to make sure it was good. They just wanted it to be good enough to where they could keep on making more of these. And I think that's all back to Jeff Loeb. Because Jeff Loeb, this is who he is. This is what he does. He does mediocre shit. And he's been doing mediocre shit since Spider-Man Blue. That was the last good thing he's done.
Really? You thought that was good?
I thought that's what I'm saying. We're even arguing about that.
Yeah, I think the Long Halloween and Hush are only good on any level because of their artists.
Yeah, the Hush is only good because Jim Lee.
Yeah, the scripts are terrible. I'm sorry, I've never seen anything
Team
where
Up?
Jeff
You
Loeb
guys
I
don't like
like.
Team Up?
Yeah. Well, I feel like this, they kind of.
I'm sorry. Eating the wasp. Come on. Sorry, Ultimatum, nobody cares, but I'm just that still pisses me
I used
off.
to love the Ultimate Universe, and when the Hulk fucking ate the wasp, I was like, I'm done. Yeah. Fuck this universe.
Well, and I feel like with this show being 8 episodes, kind of what you were speaking to about, there being a problem with the writing and specifically the directing, I feel like them going into this knowing it was 8 episodes, there was a big missed opportunity for this to be, maybe like what we're starting to see on a lot of TV shows now on cable, of that kind of like auteur TV thing, essentially, of having one director, maybe only a couple of writers, handle the entire 8-episode thing.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with it, in theory being a much narrower focus, with it being 8 episodes, having so many different writers and directors and different voices might be why some of the episodes are very choppy. And I feel like with a story like this, where it should be one very clean story working towards one straight conclusion, we got to get together, save the city, only having 2-3 writers and maybe one director for the whole thing really would have helped it.
Yeah, no question, because there are big tonal differences from episode to episode here that you really feel, and even inside of the same episode, I'm of the opinion it was kind of a mistake to feel like every time they need to switch in the first part of the show from character to character, we're switching to the total different look. Like every time they switch to Luke Cage, it's like, ooh, they do all these weird little shots of the subways going by.
Well, that's through the whole fucking series. They do that through the whole fucking series, even when they're not switching between Mary and like the last episode, they do the trains.
Yeah,
like it's like little shot of a train, like from like a little pinhole camera.
All those transitions,
it's
they
terrible.
were awful.
Terrible.
They took me out of it every time.
Every time.
What the hell
It's like, yes,
that?
I'm glad you went to film school. Can we move it along now?
After Effects is doing some neat stuff with their presets.
I know we're being super critical, and there's lots of stuff to be critical of. I mean, and once again, I think this is still much better than the Iron Fist series overall.
Oh, yeah.
And I did still, to more than not, I was like, I enjoy this. But I think my disappointment came, I just expected so much more. Like, when we got the Avengers at the end of the first Phase 1, we were like, this is the payoff that we've been building towards, and that gave us what we wanted. This just felt like another just okay season of the other shows. It was like,
you're completely right. We shouldn't have an argument about what's the best between Daredevil Season 1, 2, Jessica Jones, all that. It should be The Defenders is the best. If this is your capper, it has to be the best.
And it's like the only thing they did that's really different from the other shows is it's shorter and nobody has a subplot. Like, it's just like the plot is first they have to all meet and get together, and then the direct like train line to the really stupid point where Danny Rand punches through a wall because he's a moron. You know. Well,
and also I feel like a big problem for me with it was like, okay, you've been building up to this for so long, and all these characters are going to return to their own shows after this. But really, if you skipped this season of Defenders, you really wouldn't feel like you're missing a whole lot, other than Stick probably being dead. Like, there's really not a lot, like, consequence-wise that you're going to feel, from this. Unlike with, the Avengers, where the ramifications for that were felt in both little ways and big ways throughout the whole next phase. Yeah, even now, like. Yes, like 5-6 years later.
Even now it's being where they're referencing it here, or just like it was that big of an event.
And with this, it's like, I don't feel like that's going to happen at all. They're just going to return to business as usual.
And even Daredevil ending up like seriously injured and like bandaged up, which they're selling as like, it's the intro to phase 2. I'm like, yeah, but you could have just as easily had that happen with no extra stuff at the end of the second season of Daredevil, so it doesn't feel like that big of a thing. Nobody else has really, their storyline has advanced really here. Like what else? What has really changed for Danny Rand, Jessica Jones?
I think
Jessica Jones and Luke Cage are that much closer to doing that thing, getting to that conclusion of their storyline.
It didn't feel like anyone had any kind of character arc except for Daredevil, and that was very quickly between episode 1 and episode 3 to 4, where he's like, "All right, I'm Daredevil." Okay, let's go.
Yeah, he's like, I said I'd stop being Daredevil, but let's face it, I'm Daredevil. Well, your mama named you Daredevil.
Okay, Morton. I feel like there was a subtle arc for Iron Fist at the very end. Some of the very, very end. I feel like if they get a good writer for the next season of Iron Fist and they really use Defenders, they could have an arc where he does learn, I've been a whiny motherfucker. I need to be the Iron Fist. Look, whatever happened. It's in the past. Get your Rafiki lesson.
Oh, I see why everyone hates me now.
Well, he sort of says that at the end. He's like, Daredevil was a hero. He was trying to save the city. I was just trying to save myself.
I see that. And there was one episode where I was actually kind of warming up to him because he was the one that was like, hey, like, let's get together and like let's beat these guys.
Chinese food episode.
Yeah, and I was actually like, okay, maybe I'm gonna like this guy, and then he's like, I'm gonna do we need to go out and beat them and punch the wall with my golden fist. It's like, okay, that's really, really dumb, and that's like a writing problem. I don't want to blame the actor for that, even though he has his own issues. But
no, that's exactly what I was gonna say. Like, every problem on this show is a writing or directing problem. It's not even Iron Fist, because he definitely needs to train more. I'm not going to say he doesn't, but even him, if you gave people better stuff to work with and better marks for them to get to, like Jessica, I forgot her name,
Kristen
Ritter, Mike Coulter, Charlie Cox, they do a great job even with this material. So, for me, this series is better than it should be with the writing and directing. Like, the actors really bring it so that you're at least interested in watching the performances and the interactions. Like, so watching Jessica Jones and Daredevil have their interaction, when they find their plans in the piano and stuff.
Who, by the way, that theme what he was playing on the piano, that's the theme to Daredevil.
Oh.
He's actually playing the theme to the Daredevil show when it plays on there, for the record. A little Easter egg there. So.
Honestly, if they just get a better writer, just a better writer alone would make this entire thing better.
Yeah.
Like, just somebody who really doesn't have to even like the characters, but just somebody who understands arcs. And, if you're going to watch a comic show...
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
God damn it. And
that joke belongs in the museum.
Master Chief. I'm sorry.
Oh, God. I never played Halo.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
The grenade arc?
Oh, okay.
There was like an arc reactor.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Woo!
Noah?
And now the train has completely come off the tracks.
Completely derailed. I agree that I think the other three actually do a good job, but they're not given that much to do writing-wise. Even Jessica Jones feels like almost like a cartoon of herself. It's like, we're not giving you anything to do that advances your character whatsoever, except like, I guess I'm kind of over the Kilgrave thing, so I'm going to open up my agency again, which they could have done on their own in the first episode of another show without all this other stuff.
In the first 15 minutes.
But she's lovably funny. She's like, hold on, I need a drink. We're like, I've been there. I do that before every podcast.
Well, and that's the thing. There feels like there's a weird disconnect for them talking about how, like, all our stories have led up to this. It honestly feels like quite the opposite, because, like, Luke Cage ends with him going to prison, and that's like this big emotional moment. And then we meet him in this, and within 30 seconds, it's like, oh, you're out. Like,
yeah, it's like, why
what was the whole point? If you guys knew that you were doing Defenders, then why did you end it there? Same thing with, like, Jessica Jones. It's like, you ended it on that note of her, having to deal with Kilgrave and all that. But if you would know you were going to do this, then why didn't you do that? Like, one camp isn't talking to the other. And I feel like with the characters themselves, a large part of the problem with it being 8 episodes is because they skip over so much of the character development that instead of having 13 episode season with one character to really get into them, having 4 and 8 episodes, a lot of the times they're reduced to just being caricatures.
Yeah.
We've got Catholic guilt over here and alcoholic over here.
Playing on the jokes that we already built up in the previous stuff we watched, which would be fine if we ever felt a real sense of danger for these characters throughout this season, or it built up to something that was really genuinely exciting and like nothing we'd seen before so far. But we never feel that. So in the end,
one point I felt any danger for a character, and that was when Katana Girl. Colleen Wing. When she's fighting Bakudo. And only because she's a side character.
Yeah.
And I was like, if these writers want to be cheap and get a cheap bit of emotion, you kill her here because you're not expecting it.
I was kind of wanting that. I mean, I didn't. Full disclosure, I didn't want. I feel like I was in like most where I hadn't seen Iron Fist, and I wasn't going to watch it because. Let's be honest.
Why watch something you know isn't...
Let's be honest, yeah.
You're an informed individual.
Yeah.
Shit to do. It's like, I don't have 11 hours just to fucking waste.
But she just felt like a really, really shitty Robin. Or like, she was and I didn't really dig her acting either. And so when Misty Knight got in there, that's when I was like, okay, well, and I didn't want Claire to die. Like, that was actually, like, it was her that I didn't want to die, and I could have given a shit about.
Yeah, but that was the only tense fight. It was like.
I agree, 100%. And notice it's all with the side characters. Yeah. There's 3 fucking side characters.
The moment, Misty Knight showed up, I was like, this scene is not about Colleen Wing. This scene is about cutting off Misty Knight's arm.
There's a big ass sword.
Moment. Yeah. But, by the way, fucking drove me crazy in that scene. Because, like, everybody had tried everything to open that door that Luke Cage had wrapped a metal thing around. She shoots the handle, and then the next thing you know, she's somehow gotten in. And you're like, that wouldn't do shit.
She also looks both ways, too. She's like, oh, I'm going to get in trouble. Bang.
Like, how did you get in? Was there a whole other scene there where you're like, hold on, I'm getting my bazooka from my car?
Do we know who wrote this? Like,
do we know who wrote this?
What else did they do?
Well, this is the showrunners on this were the same showrunners from Daredevil, although one of them apparently left or got fired right before they started shooting. So it was them, and then...
He was a good one.
And then, and then I think the Chinese episode, or actually, no, it wasn't that one.
Royal Dragon?
Or no, never mind.
There's a lot of people.
No, episode 3.
Yeah, Drew Goddard came in and wrote one of the episodes.
Drew Goddard did an episode I hated.
Yeah.
So it wasn't
Ashes,
one
episode 6, which was probably my least favorite episode of the whole show.
Why the fuck would you do an 8-episode season without having one or two people write
that's what we were talking about earlier.
Lauren Schmidt, Hisrich, Marco Ramirez are 2 of the big people who were involved. Douglas Petrie, who was one of the showrunners, was one of the big writers here. It was largely created by those 3. So
they need better writers.
They do.
They got to call Cargill up and get it together.
Or somebody.
Character arcs. Drill it in their head. Because no one got one.
Yeah, I got that they were thinking this is our Avengers, but you're like, yeah, but it's not.
Yeah.
So
but it's like you need to care about what's happening for it to have an impact.
The Avengers isn't 8 hours long. It's a short action flick that has good action.
Well, speaking of 8 hours long, let's wrap this up and come to final thoughts. Zach, you're the new one. Why don't you start us off with your final thoughts and your arbitrary rating?
We shout on this a lot, but I did enjoy this, and I would recommend it if you've seen the other shows. If you've just seen Jessica Jones and Daredevil, check this out. I would give it 6 awkward character motivations and disagreements out of 10.
Kyle?
In the Marvel Universe, there is no greater threat, no bigger villain than a well-designed hallway. And these guys, they kick the shit out of some well-designed hallways. I want to see Defender Season 2, just like this hallway architect who, maybe it's like the Guggenheim, circular hallways, just like, that's where the show's good.
Airport mover.
Yeah. Just Chinese restaurants and hallways for Defender Season 2. You know what? This is just, it's kind of blah. It's a little forgettable, and the thing is, it's probably not as bad as we're saying, but we're just disappointed it's not better. And
we're
Iron
reviewing
Fist
it
is
from the
getting a lot
viewpoint
of
of people who've watched all the shows,
exactly,
and are big comics fans. And we're like, okay, this is. I mean, obviously, that's if we were to do a different review, it'd be people like, well, I've seen other things, and I don't know, it seemed okay.
Yeah, no, if you haven't seen Legion, go watch that.
Oh my god!
First,
raise the bar so high for comic book things that I think that's part of my problem with watching this.
Exactly,
is that oh my god, the bar's through the roof now.
Well, and even I finished it thinking, oh, that wasn't that bad. I blew through it kind of quick. But then I was rewatching some Jessica Jones, and I was like, this is not even on the same level. I would give this 4 out of 10 ex-girlfriends who I wouldn't mind if they couldn't remember anything anymore. That doesn't seem like a bad thing to me.
That probably sounded a lot less creepy in your head.
Yeah, that sounded really
You guys weren't thinking that?
Are you Kilgrave?
No, I was talking about Matt Murdock and Elektra.
I need to talk to Shannon for no.
Watch your drinks.
Keep the memory. I have good points with her.
Okay, I'm of two minds about this. I really like the acting. I feel like the acting and some of the set design, some of the cinematography was great. Some of the cinematography and like all of the writing and most of the directing wasn't great. A lot of the plot points weren't clear. I still don't know what the Black Sky is. I feel like they wasted Aloy Young. I feel like they wasted Sigourney Weaver. She did everything she could with that role, and she should have been they should have given her so much menace that we couldn't forget her. But she was largely not even talked about on this review. I feel like she's completely overlooked, and that's a damn shame because you have one of the best actresses in the last 40 years in your series. You have her for 6 hours, and you do nothing with her. So, but I tell you what, it's very rare that I get a show that gives me a fuck yeah moment, and this show did give me a fuck yeah moment when Luke was like, light it up, Danny. And they go into that long fight. So just for that, like in the acting, I still give it 7 dinosaur bones out of 10.
Okay.
But a begrudging 7. It's really like a 6.7, but I'm rounding up. I'm like...
He's rating on a 100-point system.
I'm just like, because it anything that can give me that feeling, especially after all the Drek, is worth at least bumping it up a point.
All right. Ian?
Yeah, I feel like the biggest phrase he'd use to encapsulate this entire series is just missed opportunity. Because this was, for years, they've been promising this is the big build-up, through all of these shows, we're going to get to this, one huge team-up event, is a word they keep using, event. Well, I got to the end of it, and it didn't really feel much like an event. It was just more of like a occurrence with friends in a couple of back alleyways. And I know that...
It was a premature event.
Yeah. And I know, these are the street-level heroes and all that, but, Daredevil did it better. Jessica Jones did it better. I mean, hell, even Spider-Man Homecoming gave me a better sense of, how a street-level hero in this universe operates. And between just the writing being very meh, the directing being very meh, some of the cast has good chemistry, but they're not really given much of a spotlight. They're not really given the opportunity to let that grow. You don't have scenes like in Avengers, the genius billionaire, playboy philanthropist, where these scenes where everybody just kind of gets to bounce off of each other.
Yeah, but if Tony Stark was in here, it'd be the Depensables.
That's true. But, the whole thing, it's kind of like what you were saying. It's just, I expected better. both in comparison to comic book shows that are on right now and just the rest of this whole Marvel lineage on Netflix. So, with that, I'd probably give it 5 dead Sigourney Weavers out of 10.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think that this is just a lot of build-up to something that does not surpass anything before it except for Iron Fist. It's like really the second worst of the shows they've done so far. And it's passable. It's just kind of meh. It has some cool moments. It does have a few, it was cool moments, but not so cool that you're like, oh, I haven't seen cooler stuff than that. There's no moment in here that's cooler than anything we've seen so far. And it's the fucking Defenders. It's the one we've all been leading up to. So yeah, on that context, and this is the way we're reviewing this, is people who've been following all this, it is a disappointment on many, many, many different levels. Passable, but nothing I can really overall recommend. I give this 5 out of 10 implausibly priced loft New York City apartments.
He's blind.
I love what they did with the Foggy character in this, because like things are kind of going good for Foggy.
Yeah.
He's almost like the archetype for the producers. They're like, oh, you don't really like the show that much? Because we're making a ton of money. Like, things are going great for us. We're going to do a lot more of these.
Yeah, but
Things
he
get bad
still
for him.
was sitting around the whole time. He and every other supporting non-powered character is like, why am I here? Like, the whole
They did
time.
have a good throwaway joke. It's like, yeah, I'm Foggy. He's like, you let people call you that?
Yeah. Once again, from Luke.
From Luke,
Who
yeah.
gets all the best throwaway lines.
Oneofus.net has been your one-stop shop for all things geek for years. But there's a side to them many of you have never heard. The subscription side. Subscribe and listen to great podcasts like The Breakfast Pub, The Original Gentleman, and the Watch a Movie With Us series. Head on over to Oneofus.net and don't forget your towel.